Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I like you all. How about my community? Good evening. All right. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight to this special meeting regarding our Sawyer Towers, or Latitude 525. I'm Dr. Harris. I'm the chair of the Near East Area Commission. And we're here tonight just to have a honest conversation and dialogue with the current buyers of that lot. Okay, and so they will go through tonight's presentation, and then there will be a period in which there will be a question and answer. We did meet, the executive committee did meet with this group earlier this month, and we discussed that we would actually submit to them a document that essentially captures the thoughts and the feedback of the community, along with a few key stakeholders as well, for them to have considerations of before undergoing any finalized plans before they come back to the commission again. And hopefully, based upon that information, which we will present to them, which will culminate after tonight's discussion, and then another discussion with, again, key stakeholders of the community. They will then go through the zoning process and things like that, in which they'll have to present their finalized plans or whatever to planning and zoning and so forth. And so we want to make sure that we do respect time and so forth, but then we also want to honor the space that we're in now. We understand that this is a sensitive property. It is a landmark. We understand the neglect and so forth that did take place. But then hopefully after tonight's discussion, we can figure out a way forward, a way that actually feeds into the development of the Near East Side, but more importantly, paints a good future for those who will come and to be able to reside in that new space. Okay? So I have the PowerPoint. You just tell me when to click,
right.
And then I'll keep moving on, okay?
Sounds good.
We are streaming live on YouTube, so if you know anyone who might not be able to be here tonight, please just go to the Near East Area Commission's page on YouTube, and you will be able to share that live recording with them. I see that we have some news presence as well, and so I have no control over where it's being broadcast. But for now, please, you can refer people to go to our YouTube channel so that they're able to see tonight's presentation and recording. All right? So I'll pass it over to you. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Harris. And thank you all for coming out and spending your Thursday evenings with us. My name is Max Zarin. I'm a director of development with Paths Development, which is the housing development arm of Nuveen Real Estate. As Dr. Harris said, this is kind of the start of an opportunity for us to hear from this community, to understand the priorities of this community, and to ensure that as we're progressing in this process, that this development plan and this new future for this important site is reflective of the goals of this community and the vision of this community. So we're going to walk through just some of what we've come to understand about the potential of this site up until this point, understanding that we're coming at this juncture where this is still really early in the process, right? And we wanted to come engage this group of stakeholders at this stage where there is still ample opportunity for dialogue, for input, and to incorporate these priorities into the project. So I just want to emphasize, we're here tonight to hear from you all and to listen and start to hear some of that feedback and those priorities. Dr. Harris, if you were flipping to the next slide.
Are you all able to see this in the back? Is it are the lights too bright?
They're either on or off. We don't have ways to dim them, unfortunately.
Okay.
On it is. So before we get into talking about the site and the opportunity, we just want to introduce some of the names and faces of our team so you can start to familiarize yourselves with us and us with you. So again, Max Zarin with Paths Development, which is the housing development arm of Nuveen. We can just kind of go around the team and do some quick intros.
Sure. Ken Spielberg, Head of Development with Paths.
Crystal Stowe with Cain Development and Construction.
Tara Allentuck, Senior Project Manager at Past Development.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and thanks for coming to what we deem as a very impactful and inspiring project that we're happy to undertake. My name is Nadia Settles. I'm our Global Head of Impact Investing for Nuveen Real Estate, which is a vertically integrated real estate operator that has development, construction, property management. We just don't invest, we actually own and operate anything. We have our own construction group, so we come with a full suite of capabilities to be able to manage housing.
Clarence Simmons, President Simmons Corporation, Simco Construction, your co-developer and also GC.
Good evening, I'm Mark Cain. I'm the president of Cain Development and a partner and could be one of the construction partners on the project as well.
Thanks, guys. So just to make clear as well, this team represents a partnership between ourselves, Nuveen, Cain, and Simmons Corp. I think when we started looking at this opportunity and just exploring the potential of this site, I think it's no secret that we're out of towners, right? And there's a lot that we don't know about Columbus. There's a lot that we don't know about this neighborhood, about this site. There's a lot that we don't even know that we don't know. And we recognize that, and it really became clear to us that it was a priority to identify the right local partners to work with on this effort. And as we started to explore the landscape here in Columbus, Mark's name, Clarence's name, were names that continually came up, and we couldn't be happier about this team that we've put together, and really feel that between our shared capacity, we're really well positioned to do something really impactful and really special on this site. And I know for our part, we feel very fortunate to be in a partnership with these guys. And I've kind of touched on this, I don't need to belabor it, but again, our goal is not to come in here and build X number of units or X number of square feet. Our goal is to come in here and build a development that is reflective of the goals of this community, and that advances the priorities of this community, and that creates something that reflects the future that this community wants to see on this vital site at the heart of these neighborhoods. And this conversation is critical to that. So just to orient everyone in the room to the site, I think most are probably familiar to this, but want to make sure that everybody is operating from the same place of understanding. So shaded here kind of in teal represents the Sawyer Towers site that we're in contract to acquire. It's just over 7 acres, and it's currently zoned as AR2 with an H200 height district. So it currently allows, as of right, the existing towers. You could build, in theory, up to 200 feet tall on the site. The AR2 residential zoning district allows for a residential density, in this case, of 1 unit for every 800 square feet. So what that equates to is the maximum number of units that could be developed on the site is about 387. So this is kind of the template that we have to work with there. And so when we started to think about what goes into a successful repositioning of the Sawyer Towers site, we just started thinking big picture. What are the critical components that goes into success here? I think to our mind, it looks like, first of all, housing of the highest quality. And as we always say, we build high quality, modern housing that is every bit as good as any market rate development being built in this neighborhood. We have a focus on affordability, but that doesn't have anything to do with quality. We build housing that is, again, indistinguishable essentially from any market rate product you might see being built in the neighborhood. And it's something that's very important to us, something that's reflected in who we work with to design the building, to build the buildings. And it is really central to our philosophy of how we approach this work. Housing is only part of that. In addition to that, a robust suite of amenities is important to our vision, and those amenities on their own are just kind of bricks and mortar. To really be successful, we think that it's critical to pair those with a suite of social services, which I'll talk about a little bit further later on. And then lastly, it's not just what happens within the building, it's also what happens outside of the building. Green space is critical to the repositioning of this project. So one thing I want to add here is when we started to look at, if we're going to do this a way that we feel we can be proud of at the end of the day, we think the community can be proud of, it means moving on from the existing towers. We think to create that type of housing, it necessitates bringing down the existing towers and building back something that is more modern, more aligned with what we think of as great housing and a great addition to the community. So when we acquire the property, we'll be moving forward with demolition of the towers before building back an entirely new community on this site. So this is a site plan illustrating the development potential of the site. And again, I want to emphasize that this is nothing set in stone. This isn't exactly what we are proposing. This is a site plan that illustrates, at this stage, how we feel we could maximize the development potential, trying to optimize for those different characteristics of a successful project. Great housing, great amenities, great services, great outdoor space. So just to walk the group through this a little bit. Along Caldwell Place here, these would be 3-story garden-style apartment units targeted for general occupancy or families, ranging in size from studios to 3 bedrooms. This central building would be a 5-story building. And then again, around the site is a network of open space. And I also want to touch on just reconnecting the site with the surrounding neighborhoods. One thing that has struck us about the site is that right now it feels very disconnected from the surroundings. And not only is it disconnected, but it is disconnecting the surrounding neighborhoods from one another. A critical goal to the success of this redevelopment is to reintegrate the surrounding neighborhoods together, and for this to kind of serve as that connective tissue, pulling these now disconnected parts of the neighborhood back together and reintroducing a scale and density that's appropriate and contextual with this community. And so this housing now would relate to the housing across the street in terms of scale and density, and kind of reestablish Caldwell Place as a neighborhood scale street with activity on both sides of the street. So these are just some of the considerations that we're thinking about as we start in this process. Dr. Harris, if you have time for the next one. Again, this just gives some aerial perspective on the scale and density that would be contemplated in a scheme that looks like this. So again, these buildings are about 3 stories, comparable to what's across the street and to the northeast. And then at the heart of the site, we think that allows for a little bit more density, but again, only modestly so, going up to 5 stories versus 3 stories contemplated in the buildings around the perimeter fronting on Caldwell. Just a couple other things to touch on in terms of outdoor space. I'll talk about this more, but opportunities to integrate playgrounds, gardens, sports courts, basketball, and so forth. And I can get into a little bit more detail on those elements going forward. Yeah, so first, again, it starts with the housing. It would be a mix in the family units of studios to 3 bedrooms. In the center building, that center building would be focused on housing for seniors. That would naturally be more heavily weighted towards 1-bedroom units. All of these units would be a mix of incomes, but would be set aside for households earning 60% of AMI or below. Move to the next one. So just to talk about that affordability a little bit. Again, all of these units would be set for 60% of AMI or below. So here you can see some of the corresponding rents. And when we look at the rents versus the rents in this market, looking at it, yeah, sure.
I just ask if you could elaborate on the mnemonics you're using, like AMI for folks in the room.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And AMI is area median income. So this is an income level that's set for the market, set for the whole Columbus metropolitan statistical area. That AMI, or area median income, is published by the Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal level every year. So for instance, the 2025 AMIs were just released by HUD. next year around this time, they'll be updated again. And that's what the rents are set off of, so that a household earning the corresponding level of AMI that's determined for the property will not be rent burdened. That is to say, they won't ever pay more than 30% of their income towards rent. So that's how these rents are arrived at. And as you can see, the rents, particularly for studios and one bedrooms, are roughly comparable to what we're seeing as free market rents in a 5-mile radius from the site. For 2 and 3 bedrooms, you can see the gap starts to open up, and you can start to see how high quality, new construction, modern amenitized housing starts to become unattainable for so many people in the Columbus area. And that delta only gets bigger as you move from, say, a 2-bedroom, say a couple with a child or 2, to a 3-bedroom with a 5 or 6 member household. It becomes even harder to attain that high quality housing. And so just to try to tie it back to, okay, what does 60% of area median income equate to? So for an individual in Columbus, 60% of area median income is roughly somewhere in the like $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Somebody making, $22 to $25 an hour. So these are just, we looked at data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about, what are just some of the illustrative jobs that qualifying tenants might have, and everything from teacher, many medical professions, nursing assistant, civic employees like bus driver, security guard. So it's just to give kind of a real life sense of, not just the math, but these are the types of folks who may be eligible, may be a good fit. And again, it's broader than just these, but we wanted to try to tie this to, who are some of the real people for whom, as other market rate housing starts to become unattainable, could find accessible, high quality, stable housing at this site. And this is a graphic that we didn't produce. It's from a real estate data resource called CoStar, but it just really resonated with us, and we wanted to include it because it illustrated not just a snapshot of where the rents in this market are today, but how they've trended and where they're going. So you can see, how the rents have started to increase, really started to increase around the time of COVID, and with all of the growth happening in this market, are expected to just continue to increase on this pretty drastic trajectory going forward. And so when we look at this, we see that, not only is it about the rents today and how those rents relate to the market, but ensuring that folks living in this community and in this neighborhood know that they have stable housing going forward, and as housing appreciation continues drastically in this community and other communities in Columbus, as property values increase, as rents all around increase, these rents won't increase. These rents will stay more or less the same, and will allow that housing to remain accessible, attainable, affordable for people who otherwise may not be able to remain in their community. So as I said at the beginning, amenities are also something that we really prioritize here, and something that we tenant lounge space, children's playrooms, outdoor space as well, fitness center. So again, there are a lot of things that we've successfully implemented at other properties. We'll talk about that. Something we certainly plan to do here, is something that, again, we envision tailoring to the needs of the population here. And what we found from experience is that these spaces really need they need a heartbeat, and they need somebody who is enlivening them and making sure that the bricks and mortar aren't kind of where the story ends, and we're really maximizing the potential of these spaces to be additive. So we're really excited to be partnered with Resident Resources Network. Sean Birch, the executive director of RN, is in the room with us tonight. And in partnership with RN, we'll be able to provide a wide array of programming and services for this community that, again, are responsive to the needs of the tenants and of the populations here. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We've done a wide array of things at our properties. I know Sean has done that many more than what we have done, but that can take the form of health and wellness classes, financial literacy, job training and career advancement, after-school programming, nutrition, all sorts of different programming that, again, is responsive to, if we have seniors here, they have one set of needs. If they're children, they have another set of needs. And that's what we'll work in partnership with Sean and her team to make sure that we're providing. And then finally, outside of the buildings, we figure that there's an opportunity to have close to 100,000 square feet of landscape space here. So again, if this is a 7-acre site, that's dedicating almost 2.5 of it to landscape outdoor space with active and passive recreation spaces. So that could be everything from garden beds for growing vegetables. So I've been talking a lot. I'm going to let these guys talk a little bit more about who we are and our experience. I think we wanted to start with the exciting stuff of the site, but want to make sure that everybody leaves here with some sense of who we are and why we do what we do. With that, I'm going to pass it to Nadir, who leads our team in all of our efforts, to talk a little bit about Nuveen and Paths and our parent company.
Before you do, some folks in the back mentioned earlier they're having trouble hearing that back row, so please just speak up so they can hear you.
Absolutely, yes. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Awesome. Well. And we not only invest, we operate. But then the other aspect is, how do we have meetings like this to hear? We're not coming into no community to tell folks what to do. We want to hear from the community. How can we incorporate that aspect of what is most important to ensure that, one, it's a we thing. We're coming in to do real estate and technical, but it's a we project that we ultimately will leave behind for this community to self-thrive, right? And so that's why these are really important, because we'll get the real estate right. We own, operate, we've been doing that for 100 years. We've been very intentional about doing it. Our DNA is from TIAA, which 125 years ago was started because people in academics, people that were in nonprofits, researchers, they weren't retiring with dignity. So our platform was started for the basis of ensuring that these retirees, these people that are doing some of the most important work, can get to retirement and through retirement with dignity. And so Nuveen is the asset manager that manages the assets on behalf of our parent company, TIA, and other third-party assets. And so mission-based is within our DNA and what we do. And so we wake up to solve two of America's, if not globally, top challenges, which is the retirement crisis and the housing crisis. And so this is meaningful work to us, which is why we approach this with a execution that we're just a fraction of the folks we mobilize. From everything that we mobilize on the operational side, we are in this community for the long time. We don't buy and not operate. We are operators. We are going to operate this asset. Everything we operate with the mindset of residents first. And we think about all that in advance so that we can incorporate what is most meaningful to the residents of Sawyer Towers, which may be very different even in the same town of Columbus from residents somewhere else. So that's about our platform. I wanted to provide for some brevity, but if there's more questions, certainly we'll answer them. And I'll also pass to you, Clarence.
Sorry, Clarence, Nadir, before that, do you want to just touch on our past experience at Archer Green? Because I know we had gotten some questions about, hey, you know, where have you done something like this before? And so we wanted to just
absolutely
share about one project that's
So there's we've done this many times, but and in public-private partnerships. And so this actually was a defunct in Queens, New York, place where police vehicles were parked and there was no activity. And so you can imagine what that created. That created crime. That created other non-economic mobility and activity. So you needed to reconnect back this community. And so in working with various different housing agencies, no different than how we envisioned the project here, not just housing agencies, but municipalities and EDC and all of the various different stakeholders, trying to understand what was most meaningful, so certainly housing, but we also incorporated a grocer here. One of the aspects, believe it or not, within Queens, New York, there wasn't a outdoor space that we can create because they wanted us to create a park as a part of it. We actually can create real outdoor space here with the real estate we have. And so what we did is we manufactured a park. We went and found an operator that was a kids club. And so that kids club serves as a place for our residents, one, that they have jobs there, but two, to bring their kids there. And not only their kids, but there actually is now a place for the community to bring their families and their kids. And so that's how we think about in any of the projects. And that project was basically, we took the police car, so we also worked with the police department there, and we actually moved their parking to below grade. So then we can use the above grade for highest and best use, which was building the apartments. And so that's just an example of when we think about the integration of not only housing, but what housing can do to be an economic accelerator around, if you can build the housing, you build the density, you build the foot traffic, you build the affordability so there's more discretion, well then you can put retail where people can spend in that retail, and then they can also get jobs within their communities.
And just to touch on that, just that last point, the focus on sustainable design and systems is a legal project, cutting edge sustainability, and we were all able to do this in a context where we were able to provide, 380 units, 87 units of affordable housing. So we can have both. We can have cutting edge sustainable design, and we can have affordable housing.
And the most thing that we're proud of is there is no corridor, and we all heard of this, right? So we have the same resident making a salary living on the top floor versus the bottom floor, and everything is evenly distributed. And if you walked past that building, you would not be able to distinguish it from affordable market rate. And that's what we're most proud of, is that when our residents return to their home at night, they are proud to live.
Keeping up theme of past projects, again, Clarence Simmons, president of Simmons Corp. I had the absolute pleasure of working on Poindexter Place, a senior facility, and also Poindexter Place, Legacy Point. And for me, having a partner like Nuveen and being able to make the kind of community impact that I saw on Poindexter, all right? And now we come back around, we can make that kind of impact again. I think it's incredible for the community, for the economic viability, and we're excited for the effort. So. Been here 30 years, went to Ohio State, been involved in affordable housing for 20 years or so, and it's been a culmination going from, me building stick frame homes, whatever, and then kind of building up and such, whatever. So have some good partners along the way, and at the end of the day, we're excited for the effort that we can bring to whatever, and I just want to make sure you guys knew we're not a new face here. We've been here building in these communities for a long time.
Absolutely. Excuse me, RY, you see two different corporate logos here that Clarence and I, again, as he referenced, are joined at the hip. We did two projects in the neighborhood, the senior housing facility in Poindexter Village, as well as some market rate over in Franklinton. Cain is part of a fully integrated general contractor and really has a significant portfolio in residential, and that's part of why that we're here. The second why is has really provided us an opportunity not only to bring our construction chops to the table, but to allow us to participate early in the development and be part of their ownership group. And so that brings it all together for us. I'd be remiss, we believe when we're engaging the community, our full team needs to hear the discussion. I've got Jeff Tilton here who will lead our efforts in construction, and Trey Potter who's standing in the middle as part of our team as well. So, thank you very much.
I think we just got a couple more real quick on what the process may look like from here, and then we can open it up for conversation. So just high level, we are anticipating closing on the acquisition, so taking ownership of the property probably in June, give or take. Once we take ownership of the property, we can commence the abatement and demolition of the existing towers. It's probably roughly a 10-month process. On a parallel track to that, as Dr. Harris alluded to, we will be continuing to engage this community, kind of culminating with coming, requesting approval of variances that we will need to effectuate this development. All of these pieces come together to get us to starting construction probably fall of 2026. So we're roughly 18 months of where we are now. And then 2 years later, Jeff and team have done their thing, and we'll be hopefully welcoming our first residents to the building in the fall of 2028. Just we can keep going, but just again, just highlight a couple of important milestones here. So over this summer, we hope to get to that point of coming as a part of the formal variance process. Will require a couple meetings, though there will continue to be other meetings like this one in an informal capacity. And then, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the abatement and demolition, which is due to start late summer. We're working with a local demolition and abatement contractor, and I think when we looked at this, really, the focus was on maximizing safety and minimizing community impact in this process of bringing down these two large towers. So what that looks like is certainly not going in there and swinging a wrecking ball or anything like that, or blowing the buildings up. We will be essentially deconstructing these buildings rather than demolishing them. So what that means is first going room by room, floor by floor, with teams of asbestos abatement professionals, creating what's called negative containment zones, essentially putting the building under negative vacuum pressure to make sure that asbestos-containing dust or anything is not blowing out into the neighborhood. And then they will bag up all of the asbestos-containing materials and take them out again, room by room, floor by floor, going all the way down the building. And while doing that, there will also be third-party air monitoring services on site to just make sure that none of the asbestos-containing materials or any other harmful materials are spreading out into the neighborhood while this process is underway. Those guys are going to take about 5 months to go through and make sure very thoroughly that every scrap of asbestos-containing material has been removed from those towers before they start coming down. Once they're done, the demolition contractor will take about 4 months to, again, essentially deconstruct these buildings, starting at the top, working their way down. Teams of guys working with hand tools, assisted by excavators with essentially what looks like a giant pair of scissors on a very long arm, going in there, snipping structural steel and concrete to bring this building down, slowly but surely, getting us to a clean site, probably spring of next year, probably roughly this time next year. We anticipate having those buildings down and the site being developed and ready, pending all of the important approvals that will be commercial start construction. So with that, just wanted to provide this email address. If folks continue to have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, you can always send them to this. It's just sawyertowers@pathsco.com. I believe we'll also make this available via the presentation, which will be available. But again, really encourage everybody in the room, everybody watching. This is an email address that I monitor, Tara monitors, Crystal will be monitoring. So responses to this email won't disappear into the ether. You're looking at the people who will be on the receiving end. So again, we encourage everyone to continue to engage in that process. You can't always be in the same room together. That's another means for us to do so. And with that, in the name of engagement, I think we can start opening it up to questions and conversation.
Okay, thank you all so much. At this time, are there any questions from members of the gathering? Go ahead, Mr. Calvin.
My name is Calvin Hairston. The Hairston family have been in this community for over 100 years. One of the things that this community and everybody that live in this community, you will find out, is they are proud to live here and have a rich, rich, rich history of what this community is all about. A lot of times people say Sawyer Towers, Sawyer Wreck, Sawyer, but nobody knows who Sawyer is. But he was an actual person that worked because the buildings were owned by CMHA. Now, once you go into the history of CMHA, you find out about housing authorities. How did housing authorities come about? Poindexter Village always comes to the fore. Well, who was Poindexter? What we find in this community, especially the political dynamics that we in this country is going through, is everyone ignores history. If we don't grab hold to history and learn from the mistakes of history, we're going to duplicate the same mistakes all over again. And we are hoping that moving forward, you take into consideration that people here are serious about not making the same mistakes over and over again.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we understand that we're new entrants in a long history for this site. And we hope humbly that we can be good stewards of this site and good stewards of this important piece of the community. And again, that's why we're here, is to receive your feedback, receive your goals for the redevelopment of the site. And we know that we can't do this successfully alone. So again, we're grateful to be here. I think we take the opportunity humbly. And something that we have also talked about is understanding the history of this site, and is that something that we want to honor as we go into the next chapter? And that's something that I think continues to be a point of discussion as we think about this next chapter.
I'd like to say something. My name is Diane McCall, and I live on Capitol View, and we are immediately in front of the towers. And we're just trying to find out how the fallout of that will affect us, because we've been through several things that they change each time, just like he was saying, to make this prosper. I mean, if it was them on the roof trying to paint something, everything comes directly to our houses. The only thing that separates us is a little out. And if you know where that property is, we just wanted to know how that's gonna totally affect us. And it's just two houses on that corner that's immediately in front of the towers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we understand those concerns. I think, again, that's kind of how we're approaching the demolition. Mm-hmm. That's where it starts, is to minimize the impact on your home and your neighbor's home and the surrounding homes.
It's gonna be a nightmare kind of for us.
I think that our hope is that we're able to minimize that impact on you guys, minimize dust, minimize noise, pest control. These are all things that we're very cognizant of and experienced with. and that, you know, that carries forth into construction.
Well, just like you said, the critters, they're already, because we're standing right there.
Yeah.
So we're fighting constantly. So once that demolition starts, who's gonna help us with that problem?
You're looking at it.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm not the expert here, so Mark, Jeff, if you guys want to speak a little bit to how you guys mitigate neighborhood impact.
Absolutely. I mean, again, define boundaries for where the work is, understanding the type of work, and you know, we call it in the business the hazards and managing that through the process. But again, it starts. It's why I wanted our team here to hear the concerns, because the concerns are real. But time and time again, we've demonstrated an approach to mitigating those issues throughout the construction. Because, you know, that's our neighborhood boundary to you. That's the start of what happens. And we know that you have to have access to our team beyond just the folks at the top. But again, it's why we're kind of all inclusive here at the beginning of the process.
You know, we're here, we're not faceless. You have the email, that is a direct line to us. I could say that if you do have issues, we want to hear about it, and that's how we know to correct it. And we'll make our best efforts to correct it.
My name is Sonny McCall. This is my wife Diane. Now, like the towers, they sit like this. Our houses, as she explained, they're directly behind the fence, the alley, and our garages. Me and Dwayne here, we are the only two houses that face that tower from this direction. Now, when you said you was gonna be starting from the top to demolish the building, so is there gonna be like some kind of not screen, but a blanket, or how do y'all? Yeah, how do you? Yeah, because before the people, they didn't do a good job. We had all kind of soot on our houses, on the garage, on the cars, and I heard what you said about starting from the top to the bottom, but they didn't put up nothing. They said they were gonna do this for our cars because they got soot on them. They didn't do nothing for the house. So what kind of, I don't wanna say promises, but you do?
Yes.
You wanna say, what, help me out there. What kind of promises do we have when it comes to that kind of thing at our houses? And then there's another gentleman, he's not here, but he sits across the street. My house sit here, and there's a gentleman right here, his house. So he would be affected also. His name is Jeremy, but he's not here. But his house is right across the street from the parking lot part. Okay, so he would be affected also. So I don't see the clarity of how y'all gonna bring that down without a mess.
I would, and I know this will happen as we get close to the demolition phase, and I'm not talking about days away, I'm talking about well in advance. We'll engage the neighbors again and talk about, here's the plan as it exists today. And we'll engage that process. We will know the properties that are right adjacent as you're talking about. We'll have a plan. The plan might have to get altered at a level. There are always some impacts during construction. I think being connected is how you solve those impacts. And that's what our history is. That's all I can't speak to what happened and who took care of that or didn't take care of that. But I know our history is to be engaged with the neighborhood, to understand if there are impacts, even with a good plan, how do we resolve those issues? How do we do the cleanup? How do we deal if the dust becomes excessive? How do we deal with that and make sure that we respect the neighbors as stakeholders to what we're doing. And we're gonna be doing it for, 18 to 24 months. We want that process to be engaged and very positive.
And if there's one little piece of property next to my neighbor, and it's nothing.
Pull that back.
Oh, you said it's like you saw it.
Yeah, we pulled that back. I wanna, where the house is at.
That one and the one before.
That right there. Can I walk up there for a minute? Absolutely. I got a concern. This
Will it
was,
show on the existing plan a little bit better? I mean,
this is her house. This is my house. And, this is trash. This is trash. And I called the city and they told me to come to this meeting. This Rice did. That need to be cleaned up. Now y'all talking about it's down the road. Who wanna take care of that property? The city won't take care of it no more. They said the courts got it. For the last 2 or 3 years, they came out and mowed. This is trash. This leaves, this is trash. This is the iron fence.
Well, we don't own the property yet, it's still with the courts, but when we do own the property, we will be addressing that.
But who wanna take care of it? Why, I mean, I was look at that, I mean, that you telling me? I mean, somebody, I mean, they took care of it before, now this year, well, we ain't gonna take care of it no more. I mean,
Sir, talk to me afterwards, I can help you.
okay, somebody did take care of it.
And this is a little nuisance spot too. We had a lot of problems before they came and cut everything down. And for the people, the overflow from the towers, we're taking our neighborhood over. And that's what I wanted to know too, as far as parking. I know you guys are just on the first level. How are you gonna do that? Because they had to have some type of pass. They didn't have passes. They couldn't park in the towers. They had to end up parking in our neighborhoods. And therefore, they started bringing junked up cars and just everything that's living there. We take care of our property, and we want to see it look nice along with what you're trying to build. So if we're gonna have that kind of problem, that must be addressed along with it.
If I can, my name is Sharif Benson. I'm the co-chair of planning. The thing I wanted to address is the folks that are here gave us a timeline. They're not going to be able to answer all your questions today, but I want them to do their best to definitely hear your concerns, because we want to hear those concerns. The earlier that we do this, the more of those concerns we get, the sooner they can figure out a plan to address it in the future. So for folks that have concerns, we want to get all those concerns out tonight, but we also will be taking some of that feedback to send along to them. You also have that email to reach them directly, so we want to encourage that. But if there's anything that anyone wants to ask that may impact those first phases right now, please, please don't be afraid to say something. We're in a room now where we can all talk. Once we kind of leave this room, it's going to be harder to get us back together in here to do this again. We're going to hopefully do this multiple times. But think about those early stages. What is it that you're most concerned about right now? Something, if it's something they can do, like the trash, like those concerns right now, get it out so that we can hear it all and they can start formulating a plan.
And I'll just say, just in response to what your concern is, that was a management problem. That was clearly we can all agree that the previous owners were not really good at managing their own property, right? I think we are best in class management. We've been doing this for more than 20 years. Our property manager, all over the place. We have direct experience in working with this type of building. I can guarantee you that we're going to be night and day better than what your neighbors have been previously. So, and we will manage the parking, and like one of the things that's been successful for us is keeping in contact with our neighbors, such that if you do start seeing these problems, please voice it to us, and then we will be able to correct it.
And just to add to that, if I could, and Nadir alluded to this, but we are vertically integrated in that we have our own property management company. So when, years from now, the property's done, if you have concerns about, say people parking in your neighborhood, all those folks that you might reach out to express that concern are the people sitting right next to me at work every day. And I'll say, oh, I know them. I know their concerns. So it doesn't become a third party property manager that, you know, is somebody else and we kind of wash our hands of responsibility. We're right there. And again, this is the start of us knowing you, knowing those concerns, so that we address them today and for the many years to come, and that we stay in this place of accountability for you for these concerns going forward.
Where's y'all main entrance going to be to get in and out that tower? Is it going to be on Sawyer again?
What do you guys think? I think we've talked about, well, so first of all, we are planning to reorient and kind of reopen the site towards Caldwell Place and using that entrance as the primary ingress and egress from the site. Now, for construction, I don't know that we've gotten so far as to determine all of our, you know, our means and methods for how we're going to do things.
I mean, like when visitors come, the fire trucks come, or they coming up Sawyer by Monroe Middle School. I mean,
You're talking about after the project is complete?
yes. Where's the main entrance?
Yeah, off of Caldwell. Yeah, the main entrance is Caldwell. The Sawyer entrance is really intended to be more for emergency vehicles, maybe rare, you know, if there's a very particular sort of, you know, truck coming to the site. I'm kind of speculating, but it's all to say that
So no traffic will be through there once that completes.
Caldwell Place is going to be the main entrance going forward. That's when, you know, when a resident is coming home from work or leaving in the morning, they'll go to the Caldwell side. If you know, a contractor's coming to the site, 90+% of the time, they'll go to the Caldwell side.
Okay.
There's a question on YouTube. Can there be plans for grocery or just shopping?
Yeah.
And then I think I can add to this, maybe because I'm confused why no one's asked this question. But is this the finalized design? No. Okay. No. So now we can answer that question that came from you.
And again, I mean, just to reemphasize what I said earlier, because I want to make sure that's clear, because it's important to us that folks don't walk out of here thinking that this is set in stone, this is the plan, and that, you know, this is what you're getting, like it or not. That couldn't be further from the truth. This is, again, kind of the concept that we've come up with that we think starts to maximize those pieces that lead to a successful project. But again, plenty of opportunities still to iterate and change things and be responsive to different priorities.
Could you go to slide 4 on here?
Other way.
Up, yeah.
Backwards.
There you go.
Yeah, that one. So, the site is, as we know, is zoned residential. And so, you know, there isn't really right now an easy path forward to do retail there. But even beyond that, if we just look at where the site is and how it's connected to the rest of the neighborhood, putting retail on this site would start overloading the traffic and all the streets coming into it. So that is not, you know, what our primary focus is. Now, of course, there's the school right next door, the vacant school. You know, as a future development, Forever was going to be working on those. This site is more connected to major streets. And as an overall site plan, as an overall master plan, I should say, retail will be better served, especially as you're getting to where that oval is, where the track is. This starts becoming something that is a lot more connected to major right-of-way, so that people can go in and out without disturbing the residential neighborhood to the east.
She had a question. I'll come to you in the back.
Yes, in regard to that though, if you're talking about affordable housing and you're talking about seniors that may not have transportation, you're talking about kids, you do need some place for them to shop that is convenient. And that has been integrated in other dense neighborhoods. I mean, some developers don't care. I mean, it's, I'm saying that in the sense that it is needed. So that is something that should be seriously considered, especially if you're talking about affordable housing too, because affordable housing also needs to have integrated into that community everything that's gonna be affordable, everything that's going to make that affordable housing sustainable for those families that are going to be living there.
And that's in our neighborhood plan. I would just add that that is in our neighborhood plan. It's available on the City of Columbus's website. It's dated, admittedly, from 2005, but part of this area's hallmark is having livable, walkable, sort of, you know, live, work, play areas, pocket parks. Those are very important to this area and a hallmark of this and the whole Near East area. So I just want to bolster your point. I think it's about, I'm not so stuck on, you know, a specific retail use, but I think retail or commercial uses are you know, super important.
So before you answer, if I could, first of all, would you please introduce yourself so we know who you are? Just say your name, who you are, just so we know.
Angel Gordon, and actually I am from the Mac East area.
Welcome.
But we have a similar problem with the housing situation. I live near the Colonial East apartment, so I was interested in what was going on here with Sawyer Towers, because I want to know what might
affect you as well.
East.
Absolutely. And sir, would you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I'm Keith Wilbur. I'm a District 3 Commissioner here on the Near East Area Commission.
So he is familiar with the Near East Area Plan because some of us in the room are the folks that help talk about what it is for planning and zoning. There are other folks here. So we do want to definitely connect to folks in the neighborhood. So while this is kind of their show right now, please connect with us because connected is how we make a difference when it comes to these development plans that may not be directly in your neighborhood, but are probably going to affect you whether you like it or not. So definitely, yes ma'am, absolutely.
And the gentleman that said get with him, give his name, because who is he?
No way.
I might want to get with you.
My name's Steve Dunbar. I work in the city attorney's office.
Oh,
I did the
okay.
lawsuit against the old owners and the old owners at Colonial Village.
Okay.
So we have like the court has a receiver who takes care of the grounds while all this is happening. It's easy for me to rattle their cage and make sure they take care of it.
So afterwards, please make sure to connect. That's kind of what we're here to do as well.
That's your man.
So look, in response to your comment, I could say that we can definitely relook at this and really try to figure out how best we can do it. We do have some hurdles, but I want to try. So
I mean, you're not wrong in everything we think about what's table stakes and other amenities and what should be in this community. And we're a large retail owner as well. And so we know retail really good. We want to make sure the program fits the residents. We also got to balance what's the primary solution we're trying to solve, which is housing. Everything you incorporate is going to take away from housing. So this isn't a big enough site to where you can actually preserve the housing that we want to build while incorporating retail. This site is a trade action. If we forget the structural limitations here, but if you actually did have access that was clean, that you could create retail, where you're going to need more parking for that retail, because you don't just want to create things for just the residents certainly, but you want to create things for the community. So you're going to have communities coming, you're going to need more parking, and then with the fact that you have this retail within the structure of the building, you're going to reduce the number of units that are there. So we already got 400 units right now. We do have open park space. We do have a lot of other amenities for the community. I know and you and I talked about this earlier, Clarence, there actually is a interconnection between retail that's very close, that can sort of play within the new redeveloped Sawyer Towers.
We were speaking of some of the new development on Long Street and such whatever. Obviously there's a bank and flower shop and such whatever. And I'm sure there's more plans about what's to come there, whatever. Those main corridors coming off the freeway or such whatever could continue to help with the problem and really foster more productive avenues for food and such whatever, retail. I know we participate and go to the flower shop or the bank or such whatever. So there's a way for whatever, obviously we're gonna keep at it and figure out how we can work with the community and find solutions, but there are some other veins along the corridor that could be more advantageous, but again, we're open to continue to have the conversation.
Similar like, I'm sorry.
I know Ms. Beckle has been waiting.
Elena Biffle, I am the NEAC planning secretary, so I'll see you guys again in a few months. My question is related to low-income tax credits or light tech credits. We've seen projects where they don't happen if those credits aren't there. We've seen things go from affordable to market rent in front of our eyes over the course of a few months. So I've got kind of two questions folded into that. One is, given the current administration, is that at all in jeopardy, that program? I believe it has pretty much bipartisan support when it comes to housing, but I think if you could just speak a little bit to that. And the second thing I know that doesn't cover that impacts our communities is rent is one number and the final cost ends up being another number once you add in pet fees, water fees, pick a fee, community light fees. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the fee structure outside of just rent and the properties you all already have? If you could just talk a little bit about, besides rent, what are those other fees or extra costs that might be built into this project to pay for all of these other extra things, and then just talk a little bit about those credits and how you see that in the future.
So the low-income housing tax credit program is a federal program. There's a lot of stuff going on in the federal government. Maybe you heard, yeah. And look, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know things for certain. But that is something that, this is our business, so we are very concerned and very attuned to it, and that program, as far as we know, is something that is outside where the federal government is trying to make changes. Okay, so that it's something that's been around since 1986, and we have been, just so you know, we're engaging with you all. We're talking with the city and the county, but we're also engaging with the other stakeholders, which is the state and the people who give us the low-income housing tax credits, to make sure that they're going to be available for this project when the time comes. And all signs are green.
I'll just compliment Ken's point with, like, we've seen evidence of the stability of the low-income housing tax credit, right? So it started in '86, it's gone through Republican, Democrat administration, Trump's administration, back to Trump, right? And there was no disruption in that. And so we've seen sort of the consistency between the bipartisan support over the last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, Trump was a user of it, so you would think that it might be something that he would keep. But either which way, to answer your other question, Max mentioned before, the way that this low-income housing tax credit program works and the rents that they are set for these projects is that the tenants are going to make sure that they're only paying 30% of their income towards housing. So that is, housing includes rent, but it also includes utilities and includes all the other things that come along with keeping them housed. So they can only pay 30% of their income towards that, keeping them housed. So those rents are set in such a way that they won't go over it. So that includes all of those. Maybe not all the ancillaries that you just talked about, but most.
And you asked your final question here, what's the fortitude to finish this as an affordable project? It is what we do. It's the only thing that we do. This is the only type of assets that we operate, that we invest in. Nuveen broader does, but when you hear Nuveen's impact space, this is the assets that we invest in. And so we don't operate market rate housing within the impact sector. And so we'll finish this as affordable housing.
And just to expand and emphasize that, we'll have a bare minimum of a 30-year required compliance period. And then, as Nadir said, just historically, who we are, how we operate, we never had any intention of letting it fall out of affordability. We would continue. Every 15 years, you can leverage another infusion of low-income housing tax credits to renovate the property, give it needed investment improvements after 15 years, and then extend it out another minimum of 30 years. So we would continue to do that to make sure that we're staying within that compliance period, which we always do. And just to emphasize the point again, we're long-term owners, long-term holders. We're not an owner that comes in, builds a property, and looks to sell it to someone else. We would build and own this property and operate it, as we've said, for the foreseeable future. So it would be us.
And to your point as well, we're all excited in Columbus with our property values, appreciation and such, whatever. Things are going great, more jobs are coming and such, whatever. But when it comes to these rents here, we don't want to look up and next year rent's going up by $200, and next year's going up by $200, whatever. So at some point, there's got to be a template like this to make sure that we can keep those residents where they can be safe, affordable, and high quality management. That is the key. That is the absolute key of whatever. I think we're seeing this in some other projects around town, and we're hoping that, not hoping, we know this is going to be the same thing, but that is the key too. So while we're enjoying all this growth and prosperity and such or whatever, we still have a mission here or whatever. We think this is going to help address the missions. Yeah.
We have Commissioner Marlene.
I pass.
All right. So we'll do Commissioner Wilbur, followed by you, and then Mr. Brown.
Yeah, so I just have a couple multi-faceted pieces here. So this area has had experience with out-of-town developers. In particular, the Poindexter property is one that I can think of that had 2 out-of-town developers, and they're very large national developers. They have a lot of resources, right? Probably not as much as Nuveen. They have a lot. They're well known throughout the industry. I'm sure you know who they are. But Poindexter redevelopment today, there's consistent issues with management of the property in terms of staffing. And so I want to know, what is Nuveen doing to retain its staffing on the management side? There's a staffing crisis in the industry. We're very well aware of it. It leads to vacancies. It leads to deferred maintenance on the property. So what is Nuveen doing in particular to make sure that it's retaining its management staff and that you're not churning through staff regularly?
Well, what I can say is that because we're vertically integrated and we're not relying on a third party
So are
manager.
these developers, by the way. I didn't mean to interrupt, but the developers of Poindexter are also vertically integrated.
Will they have construction as well?
Yes.
Do they do their own construction?
Yep.
Well, look, I can't really speak to their business operations, but we are constantly trying to hire the best in class people who will come and work at the properties, and we adjust salaries as needed to keep them at the properties. We need to retain good people, and that's what we do to retain them. And as long as we make sure that we give them the resources, which we will always do, to be able to maintain the properties, turn units, provide them the materials to be able to turn the units, and then let them be successful in their jobs, I see no reason why they would want to leave our employment.
I mean, we've had success, and you think about the tenure of our business, you have to pay people proper salaries in order for them to support their families and live the life that they need to live. But it's about the culture you create. When you're the biggest affordable housing owner, you turning communities for the positive all throughout the country, people are buying into something that's much bigger than them, and they're proud to work for our company, which also allows us to have more tenure and retention in our business. And we've seen this from everybody, from not just property management, but from construction, from Ken. Max, we've hired recently as we've grown, but Ken's been here a long time. I've been here 15 years. Like, you look at our company and people have been here a long time, it's because they're proud to work for the company that we are.
And look, to us, reputation is a big thing, right? We're owned by TIAA.
Yep.
You know, we can't let TIAA feel like that all of a sudden its properties that it's invested in are being run to the ground because we can't manage the properties. That we'll never let that happen. So reputation, us managing these properties in the best way possible is really important to us.
I want to be sure that we get to the community members, but I just have one follow up. So I'm very familiar with the tax credit program. And I just want to I'm just going to hit you with a couple really quick ones. I imagine you're going for a 9% award, or you're going for a 4% award?
4%.
So that's an as-of-right award, so there's probably not, unless the program fails, they will get the tax credits. That's an automatic award, as long as it meets the bar that Hope has put forward. I do want to address one thing. Have you talked with CMHA about the possibility of project-based vouchers?
We have, yeah.
The rents that you can achieve on those are going to be much higher than the rents that you put forth, which, I'll be honest, I know between Topiary, Legacy at Poindexter, the Livingston, Atchison Place, and Fairwood Commons Senior, all of which are comparable properties, the average rent is $978.80 for achievable in the market for a 1-bedroom 60% AMI unit. And so I would encourage you to take a look at those. I'm sure they give a 2% escalator every year. And the last piece is, I'm really concerned about the 60% AMI bar. I know that that's the bar that you want to meet. I think Legacy at Poindexter and some others, they did some average income work, but and I don't mean to point out, like, I'm not really want to open up the conversation, but the program doesn't allow for 30% of rents for every tenant. That's not necessarily the case. I'm worried about the 60% AMI in particular, not for every unit, but in particular because I could be a resident that makes 30% of AMI. I could come in and income qualify at that 60% tranche because it's 60% or lower.
Yes.
And I could be paying a 60% AMI rent, which effectively means that I'm paying more than 30% of my income toward rent. And a lot of the need is at the bottom tranche. It's at 30% of AMI or lower. And so I would just encourage you to consider this. I'm concerned for my neighbors who will qualify and will be paying more than 30% of their rent, or more than 30% of their income in rent.
So,
Did,
well, I can say that, you know, we are looking at vouchers. We are in discussions with CDMHA. In particular, the units that we're looking at for the seniors. You know, we're very concerned about seniors who are in fixed incomes. And so we look to see that these vouchers are there to make sure that they are protected, so that they are only, with these vouchers, they're only ever paying 30% of their income, and then the vouchers will subsidize the rest up to a certain level. And so this will actually protect them as, you know, as time goes on. They're on a fixed income, they won't see their rent go up.
Yeah, I'm in a market rate property. I pay $11.79 for my 1-bedroom unit, and so $10.33 for. It seems like a lot, right? But that's all I have to say. I want the community to speak some more.
You're right.
Hello, my name's Tay, and actually I am a resident of Legacy Point. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't you guys develop Legacy Point?
In the Corporate Baron or not?
In Corporate Baron?
Yeah.
We built it. We built it.
You guys built it?
We not developed it.
Okay. Well, my thing is about that. Well, I got two things. The units over here that you guys are trying to redevelop. If you ever been in one of them apartments, they were really small.
Yeah.
And you guys wanting to do all 400. Like, it would be a good idea to make some of them units bigger instead of doing all 400, maybe 150, 200. Instead of, you know, because they're really, really small. I mean,
and small ceilings too.
Extremely small. And
But I think our idea of our reposition units already are a lot bigger.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Our reposition, that's why we chose to tear the building down, so we can actually have a blank canvas to build the optimal size units, which are a lot bigger than.
And still do 400 units?
Yeah, because we spread it out. Instead of 2 towers. It's 387. But
I'm sorry, I got here a little late.
Yeah, so where you had that limitation in consolidation because you had the towers going up, so you only had so much canvas, we're now spreading that out over 7 buildings. 6 buildings.
That's a lot of buildings over here in that area. That's a lot of buildings, and it's, you know what I mean, you're saying that the area is, you know, big enough to really do that traffic, but once them housing and families get in there, it's gonna be congested either way. And then for McCormick Barron, when they built our building, they're falling apart. I heard you say that you guys are, you know, you're not going with management, and you know, we haven't had a decent property manager in the last 3 or 4 years.
We didn't have anything to do with that. We the buildings you're talking about, we didn't have anything to do. We didn't develop that. We didn't build it.
We're not managing it.
We're not
You're not
managing it.
managing it,
We
okay.
don't have
Because
anything
my
to do with
concern
it.
is,
Yeah.
we're not having issues, we're having issues
No, we
with
don't.
our property. So, I'm sorry, I thought you guys were the same company, so that was the second part.
Right.
But all these different builders were coming in and they're building all these fancy apartments and they're not taken care of.
No, we didn't.
So that was
We didn't-
another
we
thing
didn't.
I wanted to say, like, we're, building all these apartments and they're making them look nice, planting some trees, and then they're not being taken care of. So we just hope it's not a repeat, because Legacy Point is a neighbor adjacent to this community.
No,
So
we-
we're
we
right
didn't-
there.
We didn't build that. And-
Okay.
And we will be in this community long-term, with a commitment, with our own management team, managing our own assets.
Okay.
Which is why we don't disintermediate ourselves. That's exactly why we don't own, but let somebody else operate for us.
We're watching.
Could you just give us some
Okay.
specifics on how maybe you maintain your building? Just some specifics about how you maintain the buildings.
Specifics about
Maybe
how-
not this specific one, but you have other projects. If you can give her some specifics about how you do better than maybe some of the others out there
Well,
in terms of maintenance.
Just one thing I can say is it sounds like you're having issues and the building's starting to fall into disrepair as it ages and things not getting addressed. So we have our property manager who's there to address small concerns, but we actually have a separate company. It's also part of our family of companies that only focuses on coming in and making critical repairs, doing maintenance and capital improvements. It's all they do. So 100% of their time is moving around our portfolio, addressing the needs of buildings as they start to age and as these issues start to arise. So they're able to be very responsive. They're very good at it. And they're good at kind of planning out and anticipating what these needs are because they're very familiar in seeing the things that start to come up as buildings start to age. So they're really good at jumping on them
And how that's
proactively.
capitalized is each year we go through an annual budget where our property managers are telling us the various different capital items that need to be fixed, and we're budgeting for that. And so it's all integrated. Our asset management team is actually on the properties and they're seeing, and they're a different group from our construction and property management team. So they're all triangulating around different points of execution. Then our asset management team is saying, okay, we have a roof that needs to be replaced, maybe it's starting this year, but it's a 2-year process. We have things in the corridor, we're gonna upgrade the lobby. All that stuff is coming into for consideration. They're gonna work with the construction team to scope out pricing. It's gonna make our budget, and then it's gonna get executed, and it's gonna get executed all in the same 4 walls, right? All these people sit within our same building, so we're not going to find this person to do this, to do that. We're gonna have those discussions from our property management team to our asset management team. Our asset management team is gonna budget it, they're gonna get it approved, and then our construction team is gonna execute.
And then we also just, we have staff at the properties that are going to be, we have, property manager people who are dedicated to the actual property, and we have regional property managers that would be going around and seeing each of the properties within their portfolio every other week. So we have a high touch on all of our properties. I guess maybe that's to get at your question.
All right, we have Mr. Brown and then Marlene and then Lise.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Willis Brown, President of the Bronzeville Neighborhood Association. And I think this is a real beginning of a holistic approach because they're at the beginning. And yes, whether they're gonna build or not, they're developers, but we as the people are now putting pressure on the beginning. A lot of other things that happened in the neighborhood didn't happen like that. And we've been the victim of that. And we're not gonna allow that to happen again because we're experienced, we're trained, we're seasoned warriors now. So we know how to present and we know how to come together. This is an example of that. So I think they have to understand that we are here for appropriate sustainable development, but we also have to understand that there's that two-way street. We've been burned. And we have another arsenal that's behind us that is really against them. And I'm telling you, the city spent a lot of money with Sawyer Towers. They're not gonna let that happen again. With an outside developer coming in. It costs them. And so they're gonna be under the eye, not only of us, but from the city. Because the minute that it goes left, it's not just them. We then can fuss with the city.
Easy.
I was telling you. But Steve Dunbar has been very diligent in resolving that situation there. He is a dynamo right here. If he says he's going to do something, he will do it. But the city is very adamant about not allowing people come in to do it to their citizens. And they stepped up and spent a lot of money to take care of those citizens. He fought in the courts day and night. So we have that as a people, as a citizen, that they are going to do well, and we're going to see to that so that we all benefit. It's an all win-win. And we are very happy that we have that coming into Bronzeville, quote unquote, the Near East Side. But Bronzeville is there to welcome that, to bring people back so we can get a higher density, so we can get the services, because you can't get service without density. And we want to have a little bit of everything in our area, and this is where we are glad to be here at today, because from this point on, it's a roller coaster.
That's a good point, and I'll say 2 points.
So that's it.
One, what you said, it is a we thing, right? This is not Nuveen coming in telling you guys what should happen in your community. This is us coming together saying, hey, this is what we're proposing. We're at the very early stages. What do you think? Let's incorporate all that feedback, and then let's have that discussion around what this finally looks like. And then 2, we don't have a proxy, right? Like, we are here because we want you to know who we are. We gave our email address. There's nobody that speaks for us. You know us. You can say, I talked to Nadia, I talked to Ken, I can reach out, and that is why we want to be here. And this is just the first conversation, as Mr. Brown said, to many more conversations.
All right. Arlene and then Elise.
Hi, Marlene Hansard, at-large commissioner. My concern is more like grassroots. So when they get their unit, I'm just wanting that in their packet, in their move-in packet, you know, you putting in a new refrigerator, a new stove, you putting all this new stuff in. So I want somebody to take the time to register each of those new items with GE, Whirlpool, whoever you get it from. Because if the property manager decide to leave and my refrigerator go out, I want to be able to call Whirlpool and give them my serial number, and they tell me if it's under warranty or not. So many times when the units, you know, we get the stuff, we you know, nobody's to fix it. And then the maintenance guy don't know, he's not an expert with that. So that, and then I would like to see a budget for blind replacement, every 5 years or something, I don't know. I just be wanting to buy people's blinds. You know, because it's just like, no, like how often do y'all change them blinds out?
So I'll pass this to the development team, but I love your idea, just in the idea of we're constantly thinking about continuous improvement. I'm not sure if we've actually ever done the registering everybody's equipment, but we should. And not not because we're not replacing management. We will be there long term. I think it's just actually a good, efficient process. So I love that idea, and I'll pass it to you. Have we done that? And if not, we should incorporate that within.
I mean that's part of the
that is part of what we do
builder's
already.
warranties. And, yeah.
But so we already registered and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we
do it
go
already.
through a process to do that, but I'm sorry. What was your second question? Was how often do we do the blinds?
Yes. What I'm saying, y'all gonna have to teach McCormick Barron how to do it.
I think what the commissioner is asking is how do you empower the folks that live in the home to also have the ability to take care of their own things? Because if it's registered, they can call the manufacturer. They don't necessarily have to reach out to you. They can take ownership of the stuff that they have and take care of it. And I think that's where the heart of the question is how do you empower the folks that live in your units to be able to take care of those things?
Well, we, our property management system actually is digital, such that you have a problem in your unit, blinds, your refrigerator, you fill out a ticket, and then that would actually go to not just the property manager, but to also our home offices, so that we have multiple eyes that get alerted to this particular problem. And then we have, I'm not in the property management side, so I'm only speaking in generalities, but we have like a certain amount of time that we are giving our team, and they're evaluated on how much time it takes them to respond and fill these tickets. Does that make sense?
Yes, but blinds is low priority, right? I'm not saying like, I'm saying like I've been there since 2018. My blinds are perfect, right?
Right.
But they're dirty, they just need to be replaced. So I had to go buy some vertical blinds to put over the blinds you got up. You know, so I'm just.
I mean, but that's something that we could work with you to, we will work with.
Yeah, I'm
the
just
tenant
saying
to
over
actually-
time, like.
Yeah. You know, like it.
Cause normal wear and tear.
Yeah, like if you were to say like a unit would like someone would move out, like in market rate apartments, people are moving out every year or two.
Okay.
In these in places where the rents are restricted, you know, they're good values, so people don't leave. You know, they 5 years, 10 years. So we bake in, it's like every 3 or 5 years, we're going to be making sure that we're refreshing things the way that they need to be.
Absolutely.
But everything has its own timeline, right? So
Yes.
I can't exactly say what the blinds are.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is what we do.
All right,
Yeah,
so
that's good.
we have 2 more. Then I'm gonna have chair privilege. I'm gonna ask the last question after the 2 go, and then we're gonna end tonight's meeting. So, Commissioner Lees, and then the gentleman in the gallery after that.
Rob Lees, I'm one of the area commissioners representing District 4. I have 2 questions. One, I understand this is not a final plan. Can you kind of walk us through the math of how you guys came up with the ratio of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms? You know, as a neighborhood that is increasingly growing, and there needs to be units that accommodate families in the neighborhood. You know, families can't live in studios and 1 bedrooms. So just curious around the math there. And then the second question is, you started the presentation off talking about how the current site is zoned, and that it's zoned to build something up to 250 feet. So why are you only building 5 stories? You know, as a community that's continuously building, we're going to be at, you know, over 3-4 million people by 2050. Doesn't seem like a very dense plot of land when you have, you know, already those hurdles don't need to be cleared to build something more dense.
So as far as unit mix, in this scheme, about 13% of the units are 3 bedrooms. I don't recall the percentage off the top of my head that are 2 bedrooms. I want to say it's in the ballpark of 25%. So you're somewhere around 40% of the total unit count being family-sized units. I think that is honestly more than we do in most of our properties, because we understand that there is a growing need for units that are appropriate for families with children. Again, this is something that we want to iterate on. We want to hear what the priority is for the community. But we did try to put a focus on that and have prioritized that going forward. As far as height, so the existing district is H200, which allows you to go to 200 feet. And then the density is 1 unit for every 800 square feet of land. So 7.1 acres translates to a maximum unit count of 387. So, you know, when we looked at this, I think our attitude was we could go up to 100 feet tall, we could go up to 200 feet tall. That doesn't really get us more homes for families in this community because we're already coming close to maximizing the unit count in this scheme. We're at about 380, with things still being in flux, but we're pretty close to running up against that ceiling for maximum unit count. And our feeling is that if we can do that at a scale and height that is more contextual with the neighborhood, where the surrounding buildings are 2 and 3 stories, that's ultimately a better scheme for this site in this location than one that goes taller, has greater shadow impacts on the houses like this couple and the surrounding neighborhoods, without really giving too much more in terms of program.
I mean, you did say that you were already going to have to be coming before this commission for zoning variances. I don't understand why an additional one would be that big of a hurdle, considering that we pass them pretty regularly, considering that the city is going through zoning overhaul and corridor project in which it's enhancing or removing those zoning barriers and challenges. So just something to consider.
You mean for for a greater unit
Yes.
count?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys likely know better than I do. I don't know if you can get a variance to override the unit density for a district. That would be a question. I know we can seek variances for things that are a little bit more minor, like set back from the perimeter in yards.
But it was important to us to I mean, thinking of what Sawyer Towers are, and these tall towers that you can see from everywhere, do we go for that, or do we go for something that actually fits in with the neighborhood better? And we wanted to be part of the neighborhood. We didn't want to stick out. And so that's what started the kind of like the overall design scheme, and where we are. But you know, this is again just early days. But our overall goal was to be contextual, part of the neighborhood, you know.
And I think that, you know, we're here to engage with you, engage with this community, and if the message were to be loud and clear, we want to explore higher density scenarios, and that means looking at getting comfortable with higher levels of traffic, getting comfortable with reducing the other program on the site, be it less parking, less outdoor space, and so forth. We're very open to hearing that. I think we need that feedback. I think what we've heard tonight is concerns about traffic, prioritizing other programmatic elements. So, you know, it's always a balancing act. We're open to a denser scenario were that to be, you know, the clear consensus voice of the community.
Okay, I have two questions really quick. You said you've done demos for other residents. What did you do for those residents before you, or while you did your demo? Two, is the Sawyer name still gonna be Sawyer? Because my mom grew up, I grew up knowing that the Sawyer area was, everybody knew where Sawyer was. So going to that young man's question about history, is it going to stay or you're going to change it?
Something we want to hear more from you all on. I mean, what's meaningful and resonates with the community. I don't think that we, you know, it's not necessarily our place to tell you what the best name is.
Yeah, I mean, our thought, frankly, is that there's a stigma to the name of Sawyer Towers, so it might be something that we would move away from. I'm actually kind of surprised, actually, to hear that there's a desire to keep that name going on here. You know, it's a kind of like a horrible tragedy that happened at the Sawyer Towers, but you know, we're open to again, like we're receivers of what you guys are telling us. We want to take it all in, and we could definitely you know, figure out something, but we don't have a plan for the name. Our thought though was probably to move away from the Sawyer Towers, but
I understand.
No, it was horrible because of bad management, not because of the name.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
fair.
Right.
Let
we understood that.
me make a part of history loud and clear.
Please.
Sawyer was a Tuskegee airman that worked for CMAK. He provided a model for development of the towers. The towers were for seniors exclusively. It wasn't the fact that the people made, it was mismanagement and federal appropriation. People need to understand history. If you understand history, you don't make the same mistake. There was nothing wrong with that building. It was beautiful, it was fine. When appropriations was cut from the federal government, you could only do so much. When it was sold for $1 million, a speculator came out of Boston. And when speculators come in, their only point is making money. That property has been flipped 1,500 times, and the community never Nothing went into the building. The community got the end result. That is history. We don't want to duplicate the same mistakes. It is hope that you learn from the mistakes and you do better.
And I think if the community feels that the right thing to do is to maintain the name and do right by Mr. Sawyer and have that original aspiration that was dedicated in his name be the way that we move forward, you know, that's what we're here to hear from you all. And I know you asked about demo, so I don't want to, but maybe I'm not the best person to speak on that.
I wasn't going to let the question go. First, I want to let you know, Crystal Stowe is our Director of Community Engagement. She supports our construction teams when we're on site with this connection that I'm talking about. And it's not just about them, it's about the whole construction period. We're going to have defined boundaries. We're going to know who our neighbors are. Sometimes cars get dusty. Sometimes we provide car washes. We clean streets. We know what the condition of the exterior of your property is. We make sure that we're engaged. That's the only way that I can tell you that how we handle this process. And if we've done something to harm, to hurt, we mitigate it. And we do it upfront and honest throughout the whole process. That's what I have to offer for you.
All right.
We made it through.
So this is a pivotal moment in which I'm glad we were able to hold space for you all to. I warned you all what was going to come. I warned you all, but more importantly, as Mr. Cowden has reiterated, how is it that we learn from history and so forth? How is it that we plan for the future? So looking at this site, I'm glad it's not the finalized one, of course, but I do want to emphasize the little circular building and so forth. That is an older recreation center that has recently been purchased and so forth, and it's being rehabilitated and life is being poured back into it. And so instead of, kind of focusing on putting a lot of amenities inside, you can also look into how's that you invest in this property. You have a gym right there, why put outdoor courts? And when you already have tennis courts and things like that. So the thing about the longevity of the neighborhood, I don't think any of us are saying we want 387 units. I'll tell you this as chair, I know. I'm sure the rest of my commission is not 137, so you can delete that number. But think about as what was shared when it comes to adding to not the shopping and the overall affordability and walkability of the neighborhood and so forth. That is what we will put into a document as I shared to give to you that captures what was shared tonight by our secretary, and then also this follow-up meeting that we'll have again with some key stakeholders, so that by the time you all do come back to us to present the next plan, it's something in which we can all be in alignment with. So again, to the community, thank you all so much for joining us. I don't know how you heard about the event, but please, however you might have heard, if it's through our social media, word of mouth, or emails, please make sure you do stay connected with us so that you can hear when the next update might be, in which we already saw the timeline, and they gave us permission to post this PowerPoint on social media, so we will. We will also distribute it via email as well. And more importantly, that email that was shared, utilize that email and talk to them, and they'll talk back. They're saying they'll talk back. Well, let's make sure they talk back. All right. So again, thank you all so much. We'll be back here next Thursday for our community engagement meeting at 6:30. I hope everyone as a good evening.
Oh, we found
I'm
out
sorry,
through
but
Temple.
I would like to raise a question for a young lady who is scared to speak. She wants to know, is there any talk about returning residents? Because she really liked her apartment and she wants to know if you guys are open to receiving residents back that was displaced.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But they don't income qualify with that whole something $1,000.
Oh, okay, that's different.
But you guys might take it out, right?